You know what's really exciting, man?
What's that?
There's this new designer. They're up and coming. Someday they're really gonna make a name for themselves. It's this guy like Reiner Knizia,
Yeah,
I think
it's
the
his
name's
name. He's a doctor, I guess.
I guess.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We are the Brothers Murph. That's right. We're talking about the good doctor, Dr. Knizia.
Legend.
The godfather of board games.
You know it.
We actually haven't done a top 10 Knizia game list. And I feel like for a long time, we had played Reiner Knizia games, but like, again, there's like, one of our good friends, Matthew Jude, like actively seeks out like old Reiner Knizia games. Because Reiner Knizia, if you don't know, is the most prolific designer ever, has hundreds and hundreds, like 600 games on Board Game Geek that are credited to him. He makes a ton of games. And he's very, very good. He's still making games to this very day, and they're still very, very good.
Probably designed one in the time it took to do this
Probably,
intro,
let's be completely honest. And so these are our top 10 favorite Reiner Knizia games. Number 10 from The Good Doctor is a game that we actually just played, but we really, really enjoy it, and this is MLEM Space Agency. It is MLEM, M-L-E-M, kind of calculating like that. So that's the name, MLEM. MLEM Space Agency. And this is a kind of like semi-cooperative game, but definitely competitive, but you're working together, where you are all on the same rocket ship and you're taking off from what I assume is Cat Earth, because it's all very cat themed. And you're basically rolling dice and going up this rocket path. And as you're going up, you're gonna be passing by moons and various kitty cat planets, because there's like a fishbowl planet and a yarn planet. It's very cat centric, it's very, very cute. And you're going up here, pushing your luck, trying to get up, but as you're pushing your luck, moving up this path, you can choose to have your cat-astronaut to go, bye-bye, I'm gonna jump off onto this moon, thank you, bye. And then whenever you land on, if you land on a moon, it's gonna give you instant points, and if you land on a planet, at the end of the game, the planet is going to, whoever has the most cat-astronauts on that planet will get points, whoever's the second most will get second points, third points, so on and so forth. And so it's this constant battle of like, when do you jump off? Because like I said, it's push your luck. Each spot on this path is gonna have certain die phases that are the only die phases you can use on that spot. So if we're on this spot and the die phases is 1, 2, and 4, the person who is the captain has to roll these dice. If you don't roll any 1s, 2s, or 4s while there, guess what? We just crashed because we can't move. But if you did roll, let's say 2 4s, you can then take out those 2 4s and then you will move 8 spaces forward, because 2 times 4 rather is 8. You'll move forward. But then those dice that you used are gone. You can't use them anymore this round. So as you move up, your pool of dice is dwindling. So it's this constant push your luck, like, I really want to get to this next planet, but do I think that Mike is gonna roll this? Mike doesn't roll dice very well. So I'm gonna hop off here. I'm just gonna jump off right here. It's really, really fun. So everyone's kind of semi-cooperative because you're all in the same spaceship, and you're kind of like egging them on, like, come on, we can go, we can keep going, we can keep going. But then in the end, you're gonna be jumping off and trying to score your own points. It's really, really fun. I like it a lot. It's just the cat theme is very cute. It just works.
Number 9 is Lost Cities, a classic Reiner Knizia game. It's a 2-player card game. There is also Lost Cities, the roll and write. Lost Cities, the board game, which I really want to try the board game version, but I'm talking about the OG classic 2-player card game, Lost Cities. This is a game where you are going to be going on a certain amount of expeditions that are all based on the colors of cards that are in the game. And you have, I think it's number 1 through 10 or 1 through 9, as well as some wager cards for each of the colors. Now, the whole thing is that if you undertake an expedition, you need to make sure that you really focus on that expedition, because if you just barely start it, it's actually negative points, because I've invested in this and you haven't gone and gotten me anything. So you need to make sure you kind of invest wisely. And when you start an expedition, and then as you continue it, the rule is you have to play a card that is, you're always gonna be an ascending value. You're gonna be going up with higher and higher value cards. So I place a 9 to start an expedition. It's probably not gonna be that great for you. You need to be working your way up. And I think you can play the same value card as well. So either has to be the same value or higher when you place them out. And I think for the first 3 cards you play, they are still negative points. So you have to get to 3 cards in to even hit 0 and then go into the positive. Now, what's really interesting about this game is that there are these wager cards. You can place them before you place any of your number cards in that column. And this is a points multiplier. Now, the danger is if I put a point multiplier, and you can put multiple of these down, if I have a point multiplier on it and I'm in the negative, it multiplies the negative score. So you really need to know that you're gonna be able to get into the positives with whatever color you put these wagers onto. But the problem is my opponent's sitting right there. They know that I want blue and they have the ability to maybe play some blues on their side so that it kind of stops me from getting access to these cards. And you are playing through a deck of cards, putting onto various discard piles. You can pick up cards from the discard piles to play later and things like that. So it's this really interesting, tense, heads up competition where it's like, I see what you're going for. I'm gonna try to hamper you as much as possible and make sure that the few things that I invest in are as valuable as I can. So I don't wanna start every column because it's spreading yourself maybe too thin. So picking and choosing your spots can be really valuable for you or maybe really hurt you. So it's just kind of a delicious two-player experience.
Number 8 is gonna be the absolute classic that's had kind of a couple different iterations at this point. This is gonna be, we're gonna say Tigris and Euphrates, because I never actually played like Yellow and Yangtze, which is, I know Tigris and Euphrates kind of adjacent. Tigris and Euphrates is a classic for a reason. I think it came out in like 97 or 98, somewhere in there. I mean, so it's at this point, for a board game, pretty darn old. But it's stuck around. It's now just out of top 100. It's stuck around that long because it's so darn good. Tigris Euphrates is a game where you're a different people, different faction, and you are going to be putting out these different colored markers, where these different kinds of, there's like agriculture and government and military, I believe, and you're putting out these markers on the board and essentially connecting them to different cities. And there's gonna be constant conflicts that are gonna happen in this game, but you're kind of really choosing when and where to do those. Because basically, say there's a group, you know, Mike over here is building out a whole bunch of different stuff, a bunch of different yellow stuff. I'm building stuff here. If our two yellow groups ever connect, then we have to see who's the most powerful between the two of us. So if Mike has like 8 different yellow things, I only have 4, he's gonna win that and he's gonna get points for everything. And so it's this constant like maneuvering around each other and trying to connect things when it's gonna be advantageous for you. Or if I see that Mike's building up something and he's starting to move my way, I'm like, oh, I need to start building up this because like I really don't want to get booted out of here and have to give him all these points. It's super, super fun. It's super tactical. And it's that like thinking 5 steps ahead and trying to move things around and connect things and cut people off and connect them before they're ready to try and get points. It's really, really good. It also has that thing at the end of the game that Reiner Knizia loves to do, where whatever your lowest score, that's your score for the game. So you also can't like hyper specialize in the game, because then your other scores are gonna be bad and that's gonna be your score for the game. And I always really like games that do that, and Reiner Knizia likes to do that a lot. I always really enjoy that. Your low score is your score. It's a good concept. Tigris Euphrates is a classic for a reason. We don't have it physically. I really wanna get it physically. And I also wanna try the other ones like Yellow and Yangtze, because they're just so darn good.
Number 7 is Llama. There are several games in the Llama line. This is a game where you are ultimately trying to play out your cards because you don't want points. Points are bad. They don't work well for you. And you have to, on a turn as you're going around and around and playing cards, you either have to play the same number that just got played out, or you can play one number higher. And then it loops around to llamas and back to 1. I think it's 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, and then a llama card as well. And you're trying to make sure that you can play, always play your cards. So one thing I really enjoy about this game is it's super casual. Super duper casual. You're meant to be able to talk while you do it. The rules are really simple. There is a decent amount of like, I can't play, so it just passes around, you know, goes right past me, and you hope that come around to the 3 so I can play a 4 finally, because I have 4 and then 5, 5, so hopefully I can go around and I can play a few cards in a row. And you're just trying not to take points. As you win rounds, you can actually ditch some of your points and stuff, so there's this kind of interesting thing there where you can color up your chips at any point, and if you have like a 10 or something, you can get rid of one of your chips when you win a round, so you can get rid of your 10 points. So there's this kind of like interesting point management system, but it's just a super light, super easy, casual game where, again, you're just trying to avoid taking points and you just want to get rid of all those cards because those cards are bad.
Number 6 is Witchstone. This is a, I guess somewhat newer, it's a couple years old now, super combo-tastic Reiner Knizia game. This is a game that's centered on witches. I don't know, Reiner Knizia never does theme in his games. But basically what it is you're gonna put out these hexamino tiles, so like 2 hexes and a domino, and they're gonna have different actions on them. You're gonna be putting them into your cauldron. And then you're basically gonna get to do each of those actions. There's like a wand action and like a witch action. And you put it in your cauldron, and then when you do one of the actions, if there's any other of those same symbols around that in a big group, you get to do that action to that strength. So if I put the wand action and there's say like 2 or 3, let's say 3 other wand actions connect to that one, now it's a group of 4, and I get to do the wand action essentially 4 times. I get to do it with a strength of 4. So you're basically building out your cauldron in a way to try to have like these really, really super strong actions where you're like, I'm gonna do 8 witch actions right now. It's gonna be nuts. And then each different part of the game is going to essentially combo into other stuff because you're like, oh, I'm gonna move my witches around. When I move my witch here, this gives me 1 wand action. That 1 wand action, boom, now gives me another witch action. Now I can go here and that's gonna give me this action. And you're just comboing in all these insane ways. Every single game of this, you're gonna have one turn that is bonkers. Every single time. It won't be the entire game. You might still lose, but you're gonna have one turn where you're like, man, I just did a lot. That was nuts. It's really, really fun. I love combo-tastic games. I love Reiner Knizia games. This one's cool. The theme is fun. It's kind of like witchy fantasy theme. It's great. It's just a really, really good game, but it's just so darn combo-tastic.
Number 5 is Blue Lagoon. This is a simple tile placement game. Of course, Reiner Knizia has done many tile placement games. This is one where you have a board with various different islands, and you are, in the 2 rounds, either coming into the islands and discovering them for the first time, or then in the second round, you are placing tiles from a perspective of you have lived in these islands for a while and settled there. So what's really interesting is in the first round, your tokens can go down onto any water space at any time because you basically are ripping around on your boats and you can get around to different islands very easily. Once you place a tile on an island, any tiles that are placed on islands there have to be adjacent to other tiles. So basically now you're walking over land, you're a little bit slower. And you are trying to gain resources that are placed on these islands. You are trying to have the majority of tokens on each island to score points. You want to have a big unbroken chain that touches as many islands as possible. And you want to kind of place out your settlements to be advantageous for the second round. At the end of the first round, we score up all those things that I mentioned. And then you take all your tokens off the board, but you have these little huts that are your settlements, and those remain on the board. And in the second round, you're doing the exact same thing again, placing out tokens, except for now you start from your huts because this is where you live. You are now settled in and settled down. And so now you have to place out from your starting huts, and now no matter if you're on water or land, you can only place 1 token adjacent to where you've placed tokens before or from your huts because that's where you live. So now you're slower. Essentially, you can't rip around to all the different water spots, but hopefully you've placed your huts in such a way that you are kind of set up to already get out to those islands and stuff as quick as possible. And you're doing the same kind of scoring again, going for resources, having majorities on an island, big unbroken chain, and stuff like that. So the difference between round 1 and round 2 in terms of how your tokens behave is so interesting. And that kind of laying the groundwork in that first round for the second half of the game is really fascinating. There's so many ways to score points and stuff. So there's so many things to focus on. And of course you want to do all of it, but maybe it's gonna be better for you to focus on resources and let go of the big unbroken chain and try to get the most valuable islands and get the majorities there. There's a lot of things to discover, but it's really just place a token on your turn and that's it. So it's very simple rules wise.
Number 4 is a super classic that we finally played, and this is Ra. I now know why people like Ra. Ra is great. Ra is a bidding game where there are going to be these tiles out, and you can, and Ra will be invoked at certain times, and you're basically bidding for these tiles with these, like, I think there's like sun disk tiles, and they're basically gonna have a value on them, like 8 or 9 or 12 or 14 or something like that. And when you're bidding on these tiles, you're basically gonna be putting out one of your 3 disc tiles. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna bid, 14. You're basically only gonna go around once. You're not bidding around and around and around. It's just one time around. And then whoever has the highest bid is gonna get those tiles. So on top of winning the auction, you also then are going to exchange the tile that you won with a tile that's on the board, which is gonna be another sun disk tile that has a value on it, And so you're gonna take that one and you're gonna swap it out, and then the new tile that you got, you're gonna put face down, you're gonna be able to use that next round. So we played this game for the first time with our good friend Grant Lyon. If you don't watch Grant's stuff, he's great. And he loves Ra. And he was really talking about, like, so often when you're going for these auctions, you're really playing for that tile. You're playing for that tile because that tile you're gonna use next round. So you have to set yourself up well, because if you have really high tiles and say you turn in a 12, but you turn it in for a 2, next round, instead of having a 12, you're now gonna have a 2. So a lot of times you want to make sure you're setting yourself up for next round, and it's so good. And then the other tiles that you're getting are gonna go on either side of your board, and essentially gonna be, certain ones are set collections, certain ones are like flood tiles that you're getting. There's a whole bunch of different stuff that you can get, but it really comes down to that bidding. And what are you willing to give up? What are you gonna get back in exchange for the disc that you gave up? It's just so much fun, and that, playing it with Grant and him really explaining kind of like the strategy of that is like, a lot of times you're playing for this next round because that's what you're gonna be able to use next round. And that really added so much to the complexity. Like so many Reiner Knizia games, they're simple on the surface, but there's just so much depth and so many things to think about. And Ra is a perfect example of that. I think it's an absolute masterpiece.
Number 3 is an auctioning game called High Society. This is a game where you are all very fancy people and you want to be as frivolous as you can with your money to show that money is no object to you, and you want to spend it to buy big, fancy stuff that no one needs, frankly. And you want to spend kind of as much of your money as you can to buy these fancy things, but it's a big faux pas to be the poorest person in the room. You don't want to be that. You essentially want to be the second poorest person in the room because you have the most stuff. But whoever has the least amount of money at the end of the game is eliminated automatically, and you cannot win. And that is a fascinating thing to play with, where it's like, I need to spend money to get these cards that are worth points. But I can't make change, for one. I have a hand of cards that have different amounts of money and stuff, and I cannot make change. So I need to be kind of smart with how I manage my hand of cards, frankly. And there are different value cards that come out in a random order. And what do I invest in now, knowing that might mean that I'm a little short-handed later? Do I take what's in front of me, or do I hope for a more valuable thing to appear later and have extra cash then? There are also these scandal cards, these negative cards, which are things like a faux pas and stuff, where it's like, if you take it, they're negative for you. So you are bidding money to basically say, hey, I will pay this much money to not have this. And that's a reverse thing, so that if I'm the one that ends up taking this card, everyone else spends their money that they paid to basically not have to have it, and I get to keep my money. So there's these fun things to kind of consider with that. And it's just like a funny, silly world to imagine, where it's just like, I want to be as like just dumb with my cash as possible, but I can't be poor, because that's the biggest, the biggest scandal of all, which is, frankly, makes sense for the world we live in. So it's fun to play with that and really try to think of like when you go hard and invest a lot of that cash, but make sure you have enough left over that you can actually score your cards still.
Number 2 is gonna be essentially 3 games. It'll be My City, My Island, and My City Roll and Build, because they're not the same game, but similar, and they're kind of the same family. But My City is a legacy game by Reiner Knizia, which was a weird thing when it first came out. You're like, Reiner Knizia did a legacy game? Wow. That's crazy. And this is a game, a polyomino tile laying game, where the first game you play is gonna be very simple. You're placing out tiles, you're basically trying to put, I believe, groups together. It's been a little while since I played it, because it's a legacy game, I only played it once. But then as the game goes on, the game is gonna be changing. There are different chapters in the game, and each chapter is going to be 3 separate games. But the games are very short. The games are like 20, 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more. But you're kind of meant to play an entire chapter in one sitting. You're meant to play those 3 games, because each of those games, the rules are gonna change a little bit. And then each new chapter is usually gonna introduce some new thing. Because it's a legacy game, the world is changing. So you're gonna get new tiles, you're gonna be putting stickers out. Everything is gonna be changing. I'm not gonna talk about specific stuff that's changing because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't, but there's new things you can find, new things you can do. And then in those different chapters, there are those 3 different kind of stories that you'll be going through, getting little bits of rules, little bits of scoring differences. And it's just a really accessible legacy game. A lot of legacy games tend to be enormous, which is really cool if you have the time to go through like the entire Gloomhaven campaign. But there aren't that many short, kind of accessible, like family weight legacy games, and My City is that. And now they have My Island, which Mike actually just finished. I haven't played My Island yet, but Mike just finished and he liked it even more. And there's also the My City roll and build, which is a roll and write version of My City that's also really, really good. So this like trilogy of games has just absolutely crushed it. And it really goes to show that Dr. Knizia can do anything. He can do anything. He can do legacy games, he can do non-legacy games, bidding games, whatever he wants, he can just do it. He's the best.
Our number 1 Reiner Knizia game is the Quest for El Dorado. We love a racing game here, and we love deck building. This game blends those 2 things together. So this is a game where you're looking for the lost city of El Dorado, and you are using cards that you play to navigate the map. Each map space, adjacent to your explorer will show a symbol or symbols, like might be 1 machete or 2 or 3 machetes. And you need to play a card with that value of the matching symbol in order to move on to it. So one thing we really like about this game is that it's fairly simple to understand. If I see a paddle and water in front of me, I need to have a card that has a paddle and water on it to be able to move on to that spot. That makes sense. There are markets and things you have to spend your money to go through, but you also want to hang on to your money to be able to buy better cards. So I think it's a good way to kind of create an intuitive system for learning deck building. Because all I'm thinking about is like, how do I get through the various areas of the map? How do I move as kind of efficiently as I can? What cards do I want to buy to give myself the best odds of not getting stuck somewhere? That's something that's like, again, makes sense to us. It's fairly like logical. And so with a deck building game that maybe is, more of a pure deck building game where there's just gonna be combos and stuff, those might not always be like readily available or obvious for people to see like, oh, these cards should go together. But something where I'm trying to navigate a physical map makes it just a little bit more kind of sensible and linear as a great way to kind of explain the concept of deck building. So this is a great game we love to show people who maybe prefer a racing game or they want something that's gonna be kind of tense and they don't mind learning some game mechanisms along the way just by the way that it all gets handled. So it's one that we really enjoy. The race always ends up really close. You're just on a mad dash, hoping to pull the right hand at the right time to be able to get to the finish line first. Super duper fun, one that we just keep coming back to. It's Quest for El Dorado. So those are some games that we love from the Good Doctor. Of course,
I know we missed some.
There are literally hundreds more.
Yeah, so let us know which ones we missed.
These are just our personal favorites. So if we didn't name your favorite Knizia game, please don't take offense. These are just the ones that we prefer the most.
There's so many.
There's so many to choose from.
You didn't talk about Escalation, where you're like angry neighbors.
I love that one.
It was fun.
All right, too many cooks. There's so many things in there to check out. So let us know your favorite Reiner Knizia games in the comments below. Really, what a master designer.
I mean, still so good.
Yeah, the ability to make simple games that have more of a depth of strategy than you would think. It's just incredible to watch Knizia work and to keep right on going. It's very exciting. So those are our favorite Knizia games. Get yours in the comments below, and we'll catch you all in the next top 10.
Bye, everybody.